Every morning looks the same, but the feeling when you first open your eyes does not. There are days when the light touches the room very gently. The world is still quiet. No one is asking for anything. No one is calling your name. The phone is still dark, and yet, in that very moment, the mind has already begun to speak. A familiar voice, quick and convincing. There is so much to do today. I am still not enough. Today will probably be tiring. We often think the new day begins when we get out of bed. But in Buddhist teachings, the day begins earlier than that. It begins the moment the first voice arises in the mind, before any action, before any long chain of thoughts. Just a short sentence, but powerful enough to pull the mind far away, or to keep it right here. The first voice you hear in the morning does not come from the outside world. It comes from you, and that voice quietly guides your breathing, your emotions, the way you step into the day. These are not phrases meant to force you into positivity, not motivation you have to struggle to believe. Just 6 very simple words, enough to help you pause, enough to keep the mind from drifting, enough to let you begin the day without losing yourself. This morning, before the world speaks, allow yourself to speak first. The first word, presence, staying with this moment. Many people's mornings begin in the same way. The moment the eyes open, the mind starts running before the body does. Before sitting up, worry has already appeared. It might be today's tasks. It might be something unfinished from yesterday. It might be something that has not happened yet, but the mind has already gone there. The body is still lying in bed, but the mind has left the room a long time ago. This is not your fault. The human mind has a habit of running. It runs to the past to replay what is unresolved. It runs to the future to prepare for what has not yet arrived. And because of that, many mornings begin with heaviness, even when the body is still intact. We have not taken a step, yet the mind has traveled too far. In the teachings of the Buddha, suffering does not arise because we have many things to do. Suffering arises when the mind leaves the present moment. When we are no longer here, even though the body is here. When the mind lives in memory or worry, even while the morning is still new. Presence is returning to that starting point. Presence does not mean immediate peace. Presence is not forcing yourself to feel comfortable. Presence simply means staying with what is. If you are tired, know that you are tired. If you are worried, know that you are worried. There is no need to fix it, no need to push it away. Just do not run. Many people are afraid of presence because they believe that if they stay, they will have to face uncomfortable feelings. But the truth is, those feelings are already there. When we are not present, they control us quietly. When we are present, we see them more clearly, and because of that, they lose some of their power. Imagine this moment. You are still lying in bed. The room is still familiar. The light is still touching everything gently. Instead of letting the mind continue to run, bring your attention back to the body. Feel the breath coming in. Feel the breath going out. There is no need to control it. Just notice. Feel the weight of the body resting on the bed, the shoulders being supported, the back being held, the hands resting somewhere. These sensations are very simple, but they are doorways for the mind to return. When the mind returns to the body, it stops wandering. You can whisper a very soft sentence, I am here, not to convince yourself, not to create a feeling, just a reminder that in this moment, you are present. In this moment, you do not need to go anywhere. When you are present, a pause appears. In that pause, the mind is no longer pulled by the past or the future. You no longer have to live inside a story. You are living in the moment. And that is the foundation for everything that comes next. This moment of presence can be very brief, just a few breaths. But those few breaths are enough to shift the direction of the mind, from being carried away to staying, from reacting to noticing, from tension to a little more softness. Many people wait until the mind is calm before allowing themselves to be present. But the mind being unsettled is the very reason presence is needed. Not to make everything feel pleasant, but to stop being carried away unconsciously every morning. Without presence, every reminder that follows becomes empty words. If the mind is not here, choices will be dragged along by habit. Actions will be led by worry. That is why the first word in the morning is not effort. The first word is returning. With just one moment of presence, the entire morning becomes different. Not because life has changed, but because you have stayed with it. And from this place of staying, the next reminders can begin, gently and steadily. The second word, choice, guiding the mind in the right direction. After fully arriving in this moment, something very natural begins to appear. It is the ability to choose. Yet many people do not recognize it. We often say to ourselves, I have no choice. This is just how I am. I am used to it. I cannot be different. These sentences sound very real, but they make us forget something important. Even when we do not choose, we are still choosing by following old habits every day. In the teachings of the Buddha, the mind always goes ahead of action. Wherever the mind is directed, speech and behavior follow that direction. Because of this, choice is not something grand. It does not require us to change our entire life in one morning. Choice is simply the moment we realize that we have the ability to decide the direction of the mind, right now. In this very morning, many people wake up with the feeling of being carried away. Carried by schedules, carried by responsibilities, carried by what is unfinished. But this sense of being pulled does not come from circumstances. It comes from letting the mind run without noticing. When there is no choice, we live as if we are being dragged. When choice is present, we begin to walk. Choice is not choosing the whole day. Choosing the entire day often exhausts us before we begin. Choice in the spirit of Buddhist practice is very small. Choosing just the first hour. Sometimes choosing only the first few minutes. In that short span, we decide how we will be present. Not to be better than anyone else, but to avoid losing ourselves. You can choose silence instead of being swept away by familiar thought patterns. When the mind begins to replay old stories, you choose not to continue them. You simply listen to the breath. When the phone calls for your attention, you choose to slow down for a moment before touching it. Not because the phone is bad, but because you are learning not to let everything decide for you. You can also choose slowness. Instead of hurry, slowness in the way you sit up. Slowness in the way you step out of bed. Slowness in the way you reach for water. This slowness does not make you late. It helps you stay clear. When the mind slows, actions become more precise. When actions are clear, the day feels lighter. Many people think that choice means control. But choice in the spirit of right understanding is not forcing anything. It is a gentle awareness. You see yourself standing at a small crossroads, and you choose the direction that causes less harm to yourself. It might be choosing not to criticize yourself as soon as you wake up. It might be choosing not to carry the pressure of yesterday into today. When you choose, you do not need to be right. You only need to be present with that choice. Because each time you choose a more mindful way of living, you are nurturing the trust that you are not completely powerless in the flow of the mind. That trust does not come from thinking. It comes from repeated experience each morning. You can whisper a very simple sentence to remind yourself. This morning, I choose to be present. This sentence does not promise anything grand. It simply confirms that you are entering the day with gentle intention, not being pulled, not resisting, just choosing to stand where you are. When choice appears, the mind no longer drifts. It begins to have direction, and when the mind has direction, the next steps become possible. Not because you are stronger, but because you have reclaimed the ability to guide your inner life, starting from a very ordinary morning. The third word, keeping small promises so the mind can rest. When a choice has been made, something very natural follows. Action, not a big action, not an attempt to change everything, just a very small action, enough so that the words do not drift away. In daily life, we often understand discipline as something heavy. Forcing, restraining, doing things even when we do not want to. This understanding makes many people feel tired the moment they hear the word discipline. In the spirit of Buddhist teachings, keeping precepts is not about becoming perfect. It is about allowing the mind to rest. It is about letting the body and the mind stop pulling each other too far. Discipline here is not harshness toward yourself. It is a very gentle form of self-respect. It is the way you tell yourself that you matter enough to be cared for through simple things. Gentle discipline does not force you to be strong. It does not demand that you do things beyond your capacity. It simply invites you to keep one very small promise, right in this morning. Because when words are not followed by action, the mind begins to lose trust. And when the mind no longer trusts itself, every form of motivation becomes fragile. Keeping precepts in the morning does not require rituals. It does not require long lists. It can begin with drinking a sip of water as soon as you wake up. Not rushing, not thinking further, just drinking and knowing that you are drinking. That sip of water does not change your life, but it confirms that you did what you said you would do. Another very small action is not picking up the phone right away. Not because the phone is wrong, but because you are learning not to let the world decide your inner state before you have a chance to stand steady. Just a few minutes without touching the screen is enough to give the mind space to breathe. That space is where gentle discipline is nourished. Many people wait until they feel motivated before acting. But motivation usually comes after action, not before. When you keep a small promise, even a very small one, the mind records it. It learns that when you say something, you follow through. From there, trust slowly begins to return, little by little. Gentle discipline does not need anyone to see it. It is not for display. It is not for proof. It only needs you to know. Because there is no audience, the action touches deeper inside. When no one praises you, no one reminds you, and you still do what you chose, you are cultivating a very quiet strength. There may be mornings when you do not want to keep that promise. The mind may search for reasons to delay. That is completely normal. Gentle discipline does not mean never feeling lazy. Gentle discipline means noticing that laziness is present and still choosing to do one very small thing, enough to not abandon yourself. Each morning, you keep a small promise. You are healing the trust you have in yourself. Not through big achievements, but through a very kind consistency. When this trust is nourished, the mind begins to settle. Not because life has become easier, but because something inside has become a support. Keeping precepts in this way does not make you tense. On the contrary, it makes the mind lighter, because the mind no longer has to doubt its own words. When words and actions meet, even in something very small, a sense of ease begins to form. And from that ease you can continue without forcing yourself to become someone else. The fourth word, staying when it is not easy. There is a truth that is rarely spoken. We do not collapse on the very bad days. Those days are usually clear. Something happens. There is a reason to feel sad, a reason to stop. We can easily be gentle with ourselves when a day is truly difficult. But most of the times we give up come from very ordinary days. No crisis, no breakdown, just a slightly heavy morning, a sense of slowness, a mood that is neither bright nor dark. It is these days with nothing special that we leave most easily. There is nothing big enough to justify stopping, but there is also nothing strong enough to pull us forward. And so we drift. We drift away from what we chose. We drift away from small promises. We drift away from ourselves without even noticing. In the spirit of Buddhist teaching, suffering is not something to be avoided at all costs. Suffering is something to be understood. When we try to escape discomfort, we unknowingly give it control. When we allow ourselves to stay with that feeling, even for a short time, we begin to see its nature. And once it is seen, it no longer leads us unconsciously. Endurance is not tense endurance. It is the ability to stay without needing to react immediately. When a heavy feeling appears, we do not rush to another activity to fill the space. We do not hurry to find something to forget it. We simply stay and recognize that this feeling is present. Imagine a morning like that. Not deeply sad, not clearly joyful, just a very light heaviness resting somewhere in the chest. You sit quietly on the bed. You do not try to change it. You do not label it. You simply sit and breathe. That feeling may not disappear, but it also does not grow. It is seen, and when it is seen, it softens in a very natural way. Many people believe that if they stay with an uncomfortable feeling, it will swallow them. But what usually happens is the opposite. When we do not run away, the feeling gradually loses its strength. Its power comes from avoidance. When we stay, it has nowhere to chase us. Endurance is a quality trained on days that are not special. Not when you are full of energy, not when you feel inspired, but when you are tired enough to want to skip. In those moments, staying even a few minutes longer becomes a very deep action. Staying does not mean forcing yourself to finish everything. Staying simply means not turning away from the experience that is happening. You can still move slowly, you can still do less, but you do not disappear from yourself. You do not leave the body. You do not let the mind wander off in search of a more pleasant place. In practice, people often speak about the ability to sit still, but sitting still is not just a posture. It is an attitude. It is the ability to not rush to conclude that today is a failure just because the feeling is uncomfortable. It is the ability to accept that there are days when the mind is not bright, and that does not mean you are on the wrong path. You can whisper a very honest sentence to yourself. Today is not easy, and I am staying. That sentence does not make the day lighter right away, but it keeps you inside the day. It does not allow you to escape into distraction. And this staying becomes the foundation of inner endurance. When you train the ability to stay with ordinary days, you will notice that you depend less on emotions to continue living. You do not need the day to be good in order to go on. You do not need to feel comfortable in order to keep your promises. You learn to move forward even when there is no encouragement. This is the deepest point of the practice. Not exciting, not loud, just a steady presence. And that steady presence, nourished on days when nothing seems to happen, will support you when truly difficult days arrive. The fifth word, compassion, so you do not turn against yourself. There's a very delicate moment after you have tried to stay with days that are not easy. It is the moment when the mind turns back toward itself and asks whether you have done enough. Many people do not collapse because of outer circumstances, but because of the way they speak to themselves in silence. When energy is low, that inner voice can become sharp. It criticizes. It judges. It repeats that you are not good enough, too slow, and undeserving of rest. In inner life, we often swing between two extremes. One side is harshness, always demanding more, always pushing yourself to be better, more correct, stronger. The other side is giving up. When tired, you quit. When wrong, you let it go. You no longer want to try because you are afraid of hurting again. Both extremes pull you away from yourself in different ways. Harshness tightens the mind like a stretched string. Every small mistake becomes proof that you are not enough. Every moment of slowness is seen as failure. That severity does not take you farther. It only makes you afraid to be wrong. And when you are afraid to be wrong, you no longer dare to live fully. Giving up looks different. It wears the mask of ease. It says it is fine. Just let it be. But deep inside is a very subtle abandonment. You no longer believe you can continue. You no longer want to keep promises to yourself because you fear disappointment again. Giving up does not make you lighter. It only leaves you empty. Compassion toward yourself is not found in either extreme. Compassion is not striking yourself, but it is also not abandoning yourself. Compassion is the ability to stay with yourself without using inner violence. It is seeing yourself tired, slow, mistaken, without rushing to label or condemn. You look and understand that this is a human being learning how to live. In the teachings of the Buddha, hatred cannot be resolved by hatred. This is not only true for the outer world, it is also true for the inner world. When we use harshness to correct ourselves, we only create more conflict. When we use indifference to avoid ourselves, we only prolong pain. Compassion is the middle path, where we see clearly without causing harm. Compassion does not mean being indulgent. It does not say that everything is fine when it is not. It simply says that we can face the truth without punishment. When you realize you missed a promise, compassion does not tell you to forget it. Compassion invites you to return, gently and clearly. There are mornings when you wake up and see that you did not do as well as you hoped. The mind may immediately pass a verdict. Failed again, the same as before. In that moment, compassion is pausing before those words become sharp. Compassion is breathing in once, breathing out once, and telling yourself that you are still learning. When you do not attack yourself, you do not become weaker. On the contrary, you become more resilient. Strength does not come from forcing yourself to be perfect. Strength comes from the ability to stand up after each stumble without carrying a new wound. Each time you choose to speak to yourself with understanding, you are calming the inner system. Compassion is also closely connected to the spirit of non-self. When you do not fully identify yourself with your mistakes, you create space for change. You are no longer a failure. You are simply someone who failed in a moment. This distinction is very important. It keeps you from being trapped in an old image of yourself. You can practice compassion with very simple sentences. They do not need to be long or poetic. They just need to be true. I see that I am tired. I see that I did not manage it. And I am still here. These words do not make everything disappear, but they stop the mind from falling into a spiral of self-destruction. You might think that if you are too gentle, you will not move forward. But true compassion does not stop you. It allows you to continue without carrying the burden of self-hatred. When the mind is not under attack, it has more energy to learn and adjust. The anchor sentence for this morning is very simple. I can begin again without punishing myself. Each time you say this, you open a door, not to go back to the past, but to step forward with a heart that is not wounded again. Compassion does not make you weak. It makes you soft enough not to break, and steady enough not to walk away. And when you learn how to treat yourself with kindness, you will find that living in this changing world becomes more possible, day by day. The sixth word, letting go, so you can move lightly. There is something very subtle in inner life that many people do not notice. You may have been present, made choices, kept small promises, stayed with days that were not easy, and tried to treat yourself gently. Yet if you are still carrying too much, the mind remains heavy. Letting go is the final word, not to end the journey, but to complete the inner circle in a whole way. Letting go in the spirit of Buddhist teaching is not neglect or escape. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is lightness. It is placing down what is no longer necessary in this moment. Most of our exhaustion does not come from what we are doing, but from what we are carrying in the mind without realizing it. We carry expectations. Expectations that today must be better than yesterday. Expectations that we must be calm enough, kind enough, deep enough. When expectations become rigid, each morning stops being a beginning and turns into a test. We wake up already, feeling that we have not met the standard. Expectations make us enter the day with a sense of lack. We also carry comparison, comparing ourselves with others, comparing ourselves with an ideal version in the mind. Those images are not real in this moment, yet they carry real weight. When the mind is comparing, we cannot truly be here. We are always standing somewhere behind or ahead of ourselves. Even deeper is the image of who I must be. I must be strong. I must be positive. I must live up to what I have learned. This image may help us rise at first, but without letting go, it becomes a burden. We are no longer living, we are performing. And when we keep performing, the mind becomes tired very easily. In the teachings of the Buddha, letting go is not losing something precious. Letting go is returning lightness to the mind's natural state. When we release a tight grip, the hand is not empty. The hand is resting. The mind is the same. When it does not have to hold so much, it has space to breathe. Morning is a very suitable time to practice letting go. Not letting go of your whole life, just letting go a little. Letting go of yesterday. Whatever happened, whether good or incomplete, has already passed. Carrying yesterday into today only makes the new day old. Letting go of yesterday allows this day to be itself. Let go of the stories you tell yourself, the stories about who you were, where you failed, what went wrong. These stories may be true, but they are not necessary for this morning. This morning does not need to know who you were yesterday. It only needs to know that you are here. Let go of roles, the role of the strong one, the role of the one who understands, the role of the one who must always be calm. Morning does not ask you to be a perfect image. It only invites you to be a human being waking up. When you drop the role, you do not become weaker. You become more real. And truth is always lighter than effort. Letting go also means accepting that not everything needs to be resolved right away. There are questions without answers. There are feelings that are not yet clear. If we drag them along, the morning becomes heavy. If we place them down, the morning has room for breath and light. Many people are afraid of letting go because they think they will lose direction. But in fact, when we let go of what is unnecessary, what remains is very clear. You do not lose direction. You simply remove the noise that has been covering your true path. Letting go does not mean not caring. Letting go means caring in the right measure. Not pouring all your energy into control. Not pouring all your attention into becoming something. When you let go, you still live, still act, still choose. But you do not carry unnecessary weight. This morning, you can practice letting go with a very small gesture. As you sit up, breathe out slowly and imagine placing down an invisible bag. Inside it are worries, comparisons, expectations. You do not need to open the bag. Just place it down. You can whisper a very simple sentence. Letting go is not losing, it is lightness. This sentence is not meant to convince the mind. It simply reminds you that you do not need to carry everything to begin the day. When these 6 words come together, the morning is no longer a race. It becomes a support, presence to stay, choice to give direction, small promises to build trust, staying with ordinary days to build endurance, compassion to avoid self-harm, and letting go to move forward lightly. The closing sentence for this morning is very simple. Today, I live without caring too much. No images, no burdens, just enough presence to step into the day slowly and truthfully. Before we end, let these 6 words settle once more, slowly, like a morning breath. Presence, choice, keeping small promises, staying, compassion, letting go. You do not need to remember them all. You also do not need to practice everything at once. Just one word that feels true for this morning is enough. And let that word walk with you in the first steps of the day. These words are not meant to become a perfect ritual. They are simply a support, so you are not carried away when the day is still new. Each morning, holding just one word fully is enough to give the mind a place to return. If you are still listening, pause for a moment, and if it feels right, leave one word you choose for this morning. Not to prove anything, just to remind yourself that you were present. Wishing you a morning that is slow enough, clear enough, and gentle enough.